So in the morning class, we have discussed the topic of network security, where we talked about securities, services, mechanisms. Now we will go more details of network security, where we will talk things like we talk about symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, and we will talk more in details of how to provide security at different layers of uh, TCP/IP model, we can say. Okay, so it's like in the morning class again we have seen what is symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, but again we will try to understand those things so that when we go to IP security or transport layer security, these things will be more clear for you. Okay. Okay. So as we discussed in the morning class, when I say cryptography, it is something like we have some plain text. We are taking that plain text and encrypting with some key. Okay, as you can see here, I have plain text. Basically, Alice, she wants to communicate with Bob, so she encrypts the data by using some encryption algorithm. Even in our laboratory, we have seen how encryption can be done by using simple XOR operation. Okay. Similarly, you are going to have some kind of encryption algorithm. It can be substitution cipher, which I explained in the previous class. Like you may be shifting the positions. If I have A, B, C, I will shift. Like instead of A, I will send B. Or if I am using shift by 2, instead of A, I will use C. Okay, like that some shifting algorithm I might be using for encryption. So how many positions I want to shift, that is given by this shared secret key. And basically we assume like this secret key, whatever we are considering, that is shared among two communicating entities. And when I encrypt plain text with this encryption algorithm, I am going to get this cipher text. And this cipher text we are going to send on this particular channel. So when someone observes this particular thing, unless they have idea about what is the shared key, okay, or what is the key with which it has been encrypted, they won't be able to decrypt the message. If you are not able to decrypt the message, then you won't be able to understand what is that particular message. Okay. So here we are considering like I have received ciphertext, which means encrypted plain text. I will use whatever the key which has been used for encryption, the same key I will be using here for decryption, and I'll be getting plain text. That is how the process of cryptography takes place. Okay. So this shared key, whatever I am saying, if I am going with symmetric key cryptography, I am going to have same kind of key both at encryption and decryption. But if it is asymmetric key cryptography, I am going to have two different keys when I consider encryption and decryption. Again, this particular symmetric key cryptography, where we use only one key for encryption and decryption, can also be called as single key encryption. Okay, or private encryption. Sorry, private key encryption. When I go with the other one, like if I consider asymmetric key encryption, where if I have one key for encryption, other key for decryption, that is called as two key encryption algorithm, or asymmetric key encryption algorithm, or private key encryption algorithm. Okay, sorry, public key encryption algorithm. So these are the variations we have. So is it clear, like what are the components we are going to have, what is encryption, what is decryption, what we are doing, all those things? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us say like we said like when I use any secret key to do some encryption, okay, nobody else will be able to decrypt. right? Again, we are going to have some kind of problems here. Like for example, let us consider your laptop. You have used some password for that one to open that one. So let us consider the password is very simple, like your name or your mobile number or your date of birth or your father's date of birth, mother's date of birth, okay, friend's mobile number or 1 2 3 4 5 6 A B C D E F, okay, like that. If we have, then it will be easy for the people to guess these things. So we call something called as brute force attack, where you are going to have some password dictionaries, where they will say different passwords like 0 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 6. Password itself they will keep as password or admin, like we have in our college some of the passwords. Okay, unique passwords if you are going to have, then it will be easy for the hackers to guess what is the password. Okay, even we have some algorithms for which if I give some sufficient data, encrypted data, they will perform operations on that particular data and they can get what is the shared key. Okay, so that is the reason when we actually consider Gmail or Facebook or even your internet bankings, they suggest us to consider one capital letter, one small letter, a special character, one number, and at least 8 characters. The reason is considering the computation complexity we have. If I consider something, some number, some password which has at least 8 characters, it will be difficult for the computer to guess what is that particular password. Okay, at least it will take some years to get what is that particular password. Okay, so because of that they are asking you to choose 8 characters which has at least a capital, a small, a special character and a number. Okay, so for example, if I am not considering all those things, if you consider your password with just 26 small alphabets, how many different passwords I can have?
26 factorial.
26 factorial. But if you consider 26 as the length for your password, but if I consider only 4 numbers,
4 factorial.
is it correct?
No, sir. 4 into 4 factorial.
See, first place I can have 26 letters, second place I can have 26 letters, third place same, fourth place same. So you can have a maximum of 26 power 4 different types of passwords. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So you consider, like let us consider instead of 26 very small number, uh, like 10 digits are there, right? If I want a password with only 4, okay, 4 bit length, and if I consider each bit can have 10 bits starting from 0 to 9, how many different types of passwords I can choose?
4 into 10 factorial.
Why you are getting 4? Why you are getting 10 factorial?
Sir, you said 4, the length of the password is 4, no, sir?
Yes. So isn't it 10
4.
power 4?
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
First place I can have any number from 0 to 9, 10 ways. Second also same, third also same, fourth also same. So maximum, like how many varieties I can have? 10 power 4. Okay, that means if I have to say in words, it is 10,000, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So if I have 10,000 as the variety of passwords, how much time it requires for a particular computer to try all those 10 passwords, 10 power 4 passwords? Any guesses? Basically, the present computers, they have the capacity to process 1 million instructions per second. Okay, so that means 10 power 6 operations they can do in 1 second. That means for each operation they will take 1 microsecond. Like that, if I consider within 1 second you are going to have all trials, all passwords tried. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that is the reason people always say like you will have to have big password. For example, if I have a combination of both alphabets and numbers, then 26 plus 10, 36, 36 power 4 complexity is increased. Again, capitals and smalls, 26 plus 26, 52 plus 10, 62. Again include special characters. Okay, so the number of varieties I can have for each letter is increasing. Okay, so that is the reason people always say to go with the combination of capital letters, small letters, numbers and special characters, and at least have 8-bit password. Okay, again when I say 8-bit, for example, like if you consider all these varieties like 26 capital letters, 26 small letters, 10-bit numbers, it will be 62. Again, if I consider 10 more special characters, it will be 72. So 72 power 8, you just imagine how big that number will be. Okay, so in that case it will be little bit difficult for the computer to solve, but I am not saying it is not at all possible for computer to solve, but I am saying it will be little bit difficult for the computer to solve that particular password. Okay, so that's how like whatever the shared key you are trying to consider, it should be as strong as possible. So when I consider in cryptography, the encryption or decryption algorithms are public, but the keys are secret. Okay, so what does it mean is whatever the encryption or decryption algorithm we are considering, for example, we have a particular symmetric key encryption algorithm called as Caesar cipher, okay, which was introduced by Julius Caesar. So in that one, just you are going to do some kind of substitution. In place of A, I will substitute something, B, I will substitute something. So it's kind of substitution cipher. Okay, so in such case, if the encryption or decryption algorithm is known, and if I am just using substitution cipher, like instead of A, I will use something, instead of B, I will use something. If you try 26 times, you will come to know what is that particular sentence. Because we have 26 alphabets, right? Hardly how many shifts you can have. If I have one shifting, instead of A, I'll go with B. If I have two shifts, instead of A, I'll go with C. 3 shifts, instead of A, I will go with D. If I have 26 shifts, I will go with the same letter again. So if you write that particular sentence, whatever encrypted sentence I have, and if I try all these possibilities, out of 26 you are going to have one possible sentence, right? So that will be that much easy. So algorithms are public, but the keys are secret. So it all depends on what kind of encryption algorithm you are choosing. So your encryption algorithm should be as strong as possible, unlike the Caesar cipher, which is very easy to decrypt. Okay. Then in symmetric key cryptography, the same key is used by sender for encryption and receiver for decryption. That is what I explained some time back. And the particular key is shared between sender and receiver. Nobody else will be having this particular shared key. If someone else has the same key, then there is no point in doing encryption or decryption here. So that's what we are describing here. Like Alice, she wants to communicate with Bob, and they are using same secret key both for encryption and for decryption. Like I can say, like they are using XOR operation, and they will use this particular code 110 for encrypting or decrypting. Okay, simple. So the same, with the same key you will be encrypting, you will get ciphertext. With the same key you again do XOR operation, you are going to get same plain text. Okay. in symmetric key cryptography, the same key is used in both directions. And when you go for public key encryption, like I said in the previous class, you are going to have two keys. One is Bob's private address and the other one is Bob's public address. Sorry, Bob's private key and Bob's public key. Similarly, for Alice also you are going to have two keys. One is public key, one is private key. As I said in the morning, like these keys I might be getting from central key distribution center, or I may be generating my own keys. After generating, what I have to do is, whatever the public key I am saying, public key, that I have to make it, whatever the private key I am saying, it should be available with me, and the public key, it should be made available for everyone in the world. So whenever Alice wants to communicate with Bob, what she can do is, she can encrypt with public key of Bob. Okay. So public key, basically it is available in the public. So I will use that key and do encryption. Once I do encryption, I am going to get what is the ciphertext, and on that ciphertext, if I do decryption with Bob's private key, then I am going to get plain text. Okay. There you may have confusion, like we are encrypting with some key, decrypting with private key. Okay. How we will be getting plain text? The chooses of how we are going to choose these keys and how we are going to choose encryption and decryption algorithms, they are in such a way that if I consider public and private key, then only you are going to get plain text. Okay. If I decrypt again with same public key, you are not going to get plain text. Okay. So that's how these things will be. Okay. And when I consider like this, you are going to have confidentiality. That means only the person who has the private key for the corresponding public key, they will be able to decrypt this particular message. In this case, Bob has his private key, so only he will be able to decrypt that particular message. Nobody else in the world will be able to decrypt that particular message. Okay. So do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can I say, like, when you are encrypting with receiver's public key, you are going to have confidentiality? What happened? No response?
Sir, like the answer has ambiguity, sir. Like it can be yes or no, like we are not sure.
Why ambiguity?
So since it is public key, it might not be confidential, sir. But then since it is a key, it might be confidential.
Like, what is the problem? Even if it is public key, you are doing encryption, right? What problem you are going to have with that? We are talking about confidentiality, right? Confidentiality means you are supposed to have some kind of secrecy with the message. Whether I can maintain the secrecy of the message or not.
Sir, only specific group of people can access it, sir.
How you can say that? See, let me clarify. I am talking specifically with respect to this ciphertext which is being transferred on the network. Okay. Whether that ciphertext can be deemed to have confidentiality, or can we consider we are going to have privacy for that ciphertext or not? That is my question.
Yes, sir.
If it is yes, how you are saying yes? If it is no, how it is no?
Sir, I'll just try. Yes, because once if that person is decrypting this public key, then he almost reached the first stage. Then he has to decrypt the private key. So,
We are not encrypting or decrypting keys here. To do encryption, we are using key. To do decryption, we are using key.
Sir, since Bob already decrypted the message, he can freely send it to the public, sir.
See, it's like this is some message which is very secret between you, like Alice and Bob. In that case, Bob will not make it public, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's something like let us consider for that CM is giving some orders to Home Minister. Okay, and that is secret between these two people. When I say these two secret is between these two people will not make it that matter public. But can the attacker come into picture and see what is there in the message? That is my question.
the hacker can see, sir.
How?
Hacking, sir.
See, hacking is not that much easy like how we say hacking. It's not, it's very difficult.
Sir, if the attacker can figure out Bob's private key, then he can read into the text, or otherwise it is confidential only.
Okay, I do accept like if the attacker gets private key of Bob, in that case he will be able to see that particular message, else he won't be able to see. So what about others? Do you accept with this statement?
Yes, sir.
So that means if Bob's private key is not available, then you won't be able to decrypt. With that, do you agree? Or still anybody has any doubt regarding that? If you have doubt, I'll clarify.
No, sir.
Okay, so see here, like to do encryption, we are using public key of Bob. To do decryption, we have only one method, that is to use Bob's private key. Anybody else in the world, do they have Bob's private key? They don't have. If they don't have, they won't be able to decrypt. Okay, so we are considering the encryption and decryption algorithms are so secure that attacker cannot figure out what encryption and decryption algorithm we are using. Even if he figures out also, we are considering like the generation of Bob's public and private keys are so standard that he won't be guess what is Bob's public key, private key by looking at Bob's public key. So I can say like only with Bob, this Bob's private key is going to be available. So unless this key is available with someone, we are going to have confidentiality. Okay, so that is fine. Next question, next thing what we shall consider is, we will consider the opposite. Like we said, we are going to encrypt with Bob's public key and decrypt with Bob's private key. So we are going to have confidentiality. Now I don't want confidentiality, but I want a proof. Like if you are sending a message, it should be you, nobody else should make that particular message. In that case, how I need to encrypt, how I need to decrypt?
So can you repeat the question?
It's like, for example, I am sending some message. For example, you are giving you are giving some commands to a bank. Okay, so bank has to confirm that it is user X who is giving that particular command, not someone Y or Z. Okay, how bank can confirm that it is X who is giving that particular command? By using this encryption and decryption process. Indirectly I am saying like I want to have some signature on that particular text. How it can be done?
Encrypting with the sender's public key also.
Okay, you say like so for example, if I consider Alice, you are going to use Alice public key. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, sir.
So how bank will decrypt this?
Sir, public key is available. Okay, no. I'm confused now.
Yes, you can
Sir,
try out.
sender's private key, sir.
Yeah. So if you are encrypting with sender's private key, okay, anybody else who has your public key will be able to decrypt that. Do you agree with that?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So bank, even they will have your public key. Okay, so they will be able to decrypt. So I don't want confidentiality here, but I want my message should not be altered. Okay, when I want my message should not be altered, in such case I am going to encrypt my message with my private key, because if I have some message, if I encrypt with my private key, okay, anybody else will be able to decrypt, but nobody else will be able to generate the same kind of cipher text by using my private key, because it is me who has that private key. Nobody else in the world will have my private key, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So by this I can say, for example, if you have to provide confidentiality, you have to use receiver's public key and they will be able to decrypt with their private key. But if you want to have signature for the message or integrity that nobody will be able to modify the message, in that case you will have to have encryption with your private key and others will decrypt with your public key. But if I want both confidentiality and integrity, we will be using the combination of encrypting with someone's public key. Okay, again one more time encrypting with someone's your private key so that nobody else modifies that. Other side, decryption will be with public key, again decryption with private key. Okay, so like I considered in the morning, so first I'll have message. This message I want only Bob to look into, so I will encrypt this one with Bob's public key, but this one anyone can generate, right? So to make sure this is not modified by anyone, I'm going to again encrypt with private key of Alice. Okay, so nobody else in the world will be able to generate this. Even if they are able to encrypt with Bob's public key, they won't again encrypt with private key of Alice because it is not available with them. Now at the decryption side, you are going to decrypt with public key of A, because when you do encryption with private key of A, at the other side if you use public key of Alice, you will get the inside message. This inside message only Bob will be able to decrypt, okay, by using its private key. So like that we can have both confidentiality and integrity. Okay, is it clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so symmetric key cryptography is often used for long messages. Asymmetric key cryptography or asymmetric key algorithms are more efficient for short messages. So that's about like cryptography, like symmetric key encryption, asymmetric key encryption, what are the keys we have, etc. Okay, so don't think like cryptography is that much small. We have separate subjects for cryptography, but as part of your syllabus you are supposed to know what are security services, security mechanisms, what are attacks. Okay, even symmetric and asymmetric key encryption, they are not there in your syllabus, but to understand IP security, transport layer security, we require these two things. Okay, anyway, PGP, which is used for encrypting, decrypting email, that is not part of your syllabus, so we won't be looking into that. So IPsec, it is to provide security at network layer, and then I have TLS, which says transport layer security, or we can also call this one as SSL, secure
Sir?
socket layer. Yes.
Sir, which means the Bob's and Elias example that you told is not there in syllabus.
Yeah, to be specific, Bob's and Allies example is not there, but the concept like symmetric key encryption, asymmetric key encryption, that are useful in further these things like IP security, transport layer security, like that.
Okay, sir.
So without these things, you won't be able to understand these things. That's what I mean. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like we have these encryption and decryption standards which are available at a specific layer. But when I consider security, providing security in the internet, whatever the algorithms we are considering, they are not sufficient. Okay. So because of which we try to look at the chances of providing security at network layer, that is at IP layer, and providing security at transport layer, that is SSL, secure socket layer we call it as, and providing security at application layer. This will be application specific, like we can have PGP, similarly we can also have any other application layer security. So when I consider security in the internet, what is the problem we have? Okay, so the problem is like whatever the IP protocol we are using, okay, at the network layer, if I want to implement security at this particular layer, it will be very, very difficult. Okay, because we need to enable this security feature in each and every device. Okay, if I have to implement security at IP layer, we need to include each and every layer. It has to be enabled at each and every device. For example, if I consider transport layer security, it is more complicated compared to network layer. Like we could come up with a solution of modifying complete application or modify the transport layer itself for security. That is a complexity we have if I want to implement security at transport layer. But if I consider at application layer, each application is responsible for providing security. That means each and every application, they can come up with their own security standard. Like that is the reason it's like WhatsApp, they say like today we are going to have this kind of security, tomorrow we'll have this kind of security, Facebook will have say its own security features, Gmail will have its own security features, because we are trying to implement security at application layer. Okay, so implementing security at application layer is very, very important. So when I say implementing security is very, very easy at application layer compared to network and transport layer, the question comes is, why do I have to again consider security at network layer or security at transport layer? The reason is not all client server programs are protected at application layer. Okay, so basically if I consider client server programs, all those applications are not protected at application layer. We do have some applications which are not encrypted or the information is not secure, and not all client server programs use the services of TCP. Okay, TCP basically it takes information from application layer and it tries to have some kind of security, But when I consider some kind of client server programs, they don't use TCP at all. In such case, how are you going to provide security at application layer? That is the question. Okay. So for example, if I consider ICMP, okay, so ICMP, IGMP, OSPF, so these things are not utilizing the services of TCP. For example, ICMP is there, IGMP is there. We have introduced these things so that they can enhance the functionalities or the services provided at network layer, but they are not utilizing any TCP. So if I do not have any security for ICMP, an attacker can come and he can say like, this network is congested, don't send packets over this particular network. But in reality, there may not be any problem. Okay, so error messages can be generated by using ICMP by an attacker, or IGMP. When it comes to multicasting, you may be generating false IGMP messages by an attacker. Okay, so we have to protect these things. For example, a routing protocol is there like RIP or OSPF. So an attacker can modify the contents of these routing tables if we do not have any security. So all these things stresses the need of security at IP layer. Okay, so why we need security at network layer is, these are the reasons. So when I consider to solve that particular thing, they have come up with something called as IP level security, or we can also call it as IPsec. So this IPsec is a collection of protocols which are there to provide security at network layer. Okay, as discussed before, this IPsec is providing security at network layer. And when I consider IPsec, we are not going to say like, you have to use this encryption mechanism or you have to use this authentication. We are not saying like that. Okay, so it is up to you what kind of encryption algorithm you want to use or what kind of authentication method you want to use. Okay, so you can use your own methods. It is left to the entity to decide on encryption and authentication and hashing. Okay, hashing is something like, when I consider a particular message, you are going to have some kind of functions which we call it hash functions. When I pass this particular message through that particular hash function, you are going to get some kind of code. We call them as hash or message digest, we call it as. This hash, whatever is generated with variation in one bit of your message, is going to generate different hash. Okay, that means I can have one-to-one mapping from your message to the generated hash code. So why do I need this hashing? Again, like when I consider this hashing, you can have like at the other side, you can again pass the information through hashing, and you can see whether the hash code what has been sent is matching with what has been generated. If they are matching, I can say like, nobody has modified my message. Okay, so like that we are using the concept of hashing. So it is up to the user to come up with their own encryption or authentication and hashing. We are going to have something called as security association. Like how we had logical connections, security association is a logical connection between two communicating entities. For example, I have a source and destination. IPsec establishes a logical connection between the source and destination using a signaling protocol. Okay, and this security logical connection, we call it as security association. Okay, so in when I consider this association, I can say like, whatever the connectionless IP protocol we had is becoming connection oriented. How it is becoming? Because of this logical security association. Okay, so whether whatever I am saying here, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let us see what is this security association. This SA, the security association connection, is simplex. That means if I am communicating from source to destination, I can have only one security association. That is useful only between source to destination. But if I have to communicate back from destination to source, I need to have another security association. That means I can say, like, if half duplex connection is needed, we need to have two security association connections, one in one direction, another in opposite direction. So how I can identify uniquely a security association? So to uniquely identify security association, we need some parameters. That is, we need security parameter index. Okay, SPI we call it as, which we can consider like a virtual connection identifier. Each security association is going to have unique security parameter index. Okay, like in ATM or virtual circuits, we used to have VCI, right? Virtual circuit identifier. Similarly, we are going to have some kind of identifier here. And the type of protocol used for security, whether we are using AH or ESP, that has to be mentioned in this security association connection. And we will have to mention what is the source IP address. So when I consider the combination of SPI, the type of protocol, and the corresponding IP address, I can uniquely identify a particular security association connection. Okay, so there may be a chances like security connection may be different when I have same SPI but different type of protocol and different source IP address. So we have two modes of operation in IPsec. One is transport mode, other one is tunnel mode. So when I consider transport mode, okay, as described in this particular figure, you are going to have your transport layer payload. For that one, you are going to attach your IPsec. Basically, this is something which we are considering now, right? So we are going to attach IPsec header and IPsec trailer. Okay. Without IPsec, what was the procedure we used to follow when I get something from transport layer? Yes, if IPsec is not there, if I get some information from transport layer, what was the thing we used to do? No one has any idea?
Direct network layer headers, the IP addresses of destination and so on.
Exactly. Like if I don't have IPsec layer, we used to add this IP header. But we want to have some kind of security at network layer. So what we are doing, we are taking this transport layer payload, and for that we are attaching IPsec header and IPsec trailer. And after attaching these things, this complete thing, whatever I have at IPsec layer, that is considered to be my IP payload. And I am going to attach IP header for that particular thing. That means like you are going to do some kind of encryption or authentication, whatever it is. We are not sure what at this point what we are doing at IPsec, but it is going to protect your message. Okay, because you are going to have some fields in these particular things which can uniquely identify a security association, and they can also identify if there has been any modification with respect to the application data. Okay, so answer me, like when I consider this transport mode of operation, what are the things we are providing security? Like we have transport layer payload, IP payload, IP header. Okay, for what fields you are providing security here?
Transport layer payload.
Only transport layer payload? Aren't we providing any security to IP header?
Yes, sir. Using that, we are providing security to transport layer payload.
No, IP header doesn't have any kind of security. Normal IP header. If it had some security feature, we wouldn't have gone for IPsec layer, right?
Yes, sir.
So what part of the data has been under security here?
Only the transport layer payloads, sir, not the IP headers.
Yeah. So when I consider this, like only for transport layer payload, you are trying to calculate some kind of encryption, decryption, authentication, whatever it is, like hash function, all those things I said, right? So you are going to do that only for transport layer header. That means you always remember, if I consider transport mode operation of IPsec, I am going to protect only transport layer payload. I am not going to protect the IP header part. That means if you have some source and destination addresses in IP header, anybody, like any attacker, can modify that one, and this message will be delivered to unauthorized person also. Okay. So see here, when I consider IPsec in transport mode, it does not protect the IP header. It only protects the information coming from transport layer. Transport mode in action, like when I consider, like logically how I can consider is, it is something like a layer or sub layer which is available between transport layer and network layer. Do you agree with this? Okay, so transport mode is something like we have a separate layer between network layer and transport layer. Next, I have tunnel mode of operation. When I consider tunnel mode of operation, your IP header, okay, whatever the IP header and the corresponding payload is there, for that one, I am going to attach IPsec header and IPsec trailer. After attaching whatever the payload I am getting, that again I am encrypting, attaching with IP header. In this case, to what fields I am going to provide security?
IP payloads.
Only for IP payload? It's like whatever I have in between IPsec header and trailer, for the entire thing I am going to provide security. So see, whatever the IP header you are considering here, that will be same as the IP header we are considering here. But this entire part, whatever I have, that is being sent through IPsec layer, where you are providing security to entire thing. In that case, if someone comes tomorrow and modifies this particular header, then when I go at the other side and remove this complete IPsec layer and pass it to network layer, you will be able to compare the IP header which you received first and compare the IP header which you have after removing or after reprocessing at the IPsec layer. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So IPsec in tunnel mode of operation is going to protect IP header and also IP payload. That is what we are saying here. And in action, you can consider like it is available between network layer and new network layer. It's just like a logical connection we are saying. Network layer will receive the data. You are going to pass it through IPsec layer. For that, you are attaching new network layer and you are passing that information. IPsec in tunnel mode, as discussed, is going to protect us from, like it is going to protect the original IP header along with the data. So transport mode versus tunnel mode, we can consider like this. Like in transport mode, you have a IPsec layer between network layer and transport layer. But when I consider tunnel mode, we have IPsec layer between network layer and new network layer. Okay. So far what we have seen? We have seen encryption, symmetric and asymmetric. Then we have seen IPsec SSL, and again in IPsec we said like you are going to have things like authentication header and encapsulation security payload, ESP, AH and ESP. Again, we did consider that we are going to have two types of transmission, like tunnel mode and transport mode. And we have seen what is the problem with transport mode, and we have considered tunnel mode. So when I consider the AH, like which stands for authentication header, AH protocol is designed to authenticate the source host and to ensure the integrity of payload carried by IP packet. So this AH protocol, what we are doing, we are using this AH protocol to authenticate the source host and to ensure that the contents of the message are not being modified during the transmission of the packet. The protocol calculates message digest, like I said, hashing, right? Okay, so using a hashing technique, you are going to generate message digest and a symmetric key, and inserts authentication header. So it is doing a hashing function and a symmetric key, and it is inserting that particular message in authentication header. When IP datagram carries authentication header, okay, in IP datagram you are going to have a field called as protocol field. You need to replace that protocol field with 51, and whatever the value we had at that particular place, it has to be filled in next header field which is available in AH. Okay, so this will be clear when I consider this diagram. So for example, in the original IP diagram, I had a particular what I say, author details as X. Okay, like the source details as X. Then we are also have the details like what is the protocol, whether it is TCP or UDP, like that you are going to have in the protocol field. Like, so I can say like we have TCP from which the packet is coming. So when I am using this AH, the information about this TCP will be moved to next header, and whether like the other information, whether it is AEH or ESP, that is specified in protocol field of IP header. That means you might be specifying 51 or 50, which will be utilized to identify whether it is ESP or AH. Okay, so first field we are going to use for that one, next header. Then payload length, like whatever the length of the payload we have, first 8 bytes we will be leaving as it is, and remaining length of that particular data you are going to specify in terms of 8 bytes. Okay, whatever the size you have, you calculate that particular thing, payload length, and you are going to write that one. For example, if your data is being if your data is there in the middle, like it is not at the boundary of 32 bits, in that case you will have to add some extra padding bits, and you will have to give payload length here. Then we have some 16 bits reserved which we are not using. Then we set security parameter index, right? It can be any value between 0 to 2 power 32 minus 1. Then you are going to have a sequence number, like within this security parameter index. Like for a particular connection, I gave a value like 10. For the connection 10, again I am going to have several packets. So for each packet, I will be giving some sequence number. For example, if a particular sequence numbered packet has been lost, in that case, I have to use new sequence number. I cannot replay the same sequence number. In case all the sequence numbers till 2 power 32 has been exhausted, in that case, I need to completely close security association and come up with new security association. Okay, which will have new security parameter index, and you are going to have again different sequence numbers. Okay, and we have some field which we do call it as authentication data, or we can also call this one as digest. So how are we going to generate this authentication data? So to have that authentication data, we are going to utilize some of the fields. What are the fields we are using? See here, starting from this IP header till this padding field, we are going to consider all the fields, okay, except the fields in IP header which are changing during the transmission. Any idea what are the fields which are changing during the transmission? Time to leave value, whether that will change? Yes, what happened? Time to leave value in IP header, whether it will change when you move from one hop to another hop, or it will be constant?
It will change, sir.
So while calculating authentication data, we are not going to use time to live value. And in some cases, even your destination address will also change. Okay. In that cases, we won't consider that also. So for all the remaining fields, you are going to come up with authentication data. So how you will generate this authentication data? Again, you are going to use some kind of encryption algorithm or some hash function. Okay. So like that, you will be generating and you will be doing the transmission. So can I say if someone modifies this particular thing, I am going to find out that? Someone responded, but I could not hear anything. If someone modifies this, whether at the destination we will be able to find it out or not. Yes. See, at least you should think like yes, or at least you should think like no. If you feel like yes, like if you feel like someone will be able to modify, but we won't be able to detect, you will have some kind of reason for that, right? Or if you feel like nobody will be able to modify, okay, in that case also you will have some kind of logic for that. Okay, other than these two things, there is no other option, right? So if you are thinking like yes, somebody will be able to modify, but we won't be able to detect, you explain why you feel like that. There is nothing wrong in that particular thing. So whether someone will be able to modify this or not. Okay, I will say they will be able to modify. If they modify, whether we will be able to detect at the destination or not. Yes, come on, use your brains. Yes, 41, what do you think? $41.
Yes, sir.
So what do you think? Whether someone will be able to modify?
I don't think so, sir.
So, okay, any explanation like why you think like that? give some work to your mind, else they won't be sharpened. So for example, if I think like someone modifies this, can we detect at the other side?
Yes, sir. I think we can.
How we will be able to detect? So if you see here, we are saying we are going to have authenticated data. Okay, that means you are going to digest. We are going to generate digest for that one. Digest is like you are going to give it to hash function. Okay, and hash function, the property is like if I use a particular message, you will have some hash code. If I change even one bit of that particular message, I am going to get different hash function. Okay, so in that case, if someone modifies, I won't get same hash code, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the same message we will receive at the other side also. Again, I will calculate this authentication data or the digest, and I will compare what is the digest I have received, what is the digest which is generated at the destination. So if it is same, in that case I can say nobody has modified. If someone has modified, I will be able to see that particular thing when I compare the digest received and generated. Okay, so is it clear for everyone how we are providing security by using this authentication header?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so next header, as I told, in the original IP datagram, what was the data? Like I might be having information from TCP, UDP, ICMP, OSPF, right? So for that I want to provide security, so I am using IPsec. So in the original payload, what was the protocol we are using? That information I am going to keep in next header, because the original protocol field is replaced with AH, that is the number which we use for AH, that is 51 we are going to use. Then payload length, it does not define the payload, but it defines the length of authentication header in 4-byte multiples. Okay, so we have this authentication header, right? We are not talking about entire packet whatever we have, but what is the size of this AH I have? Okay, that we are going to specify, but it does not include first 8 bytes. So why I need to consider this payload length is because sometimes like your original data whatever I have, if it is not suitable for a particular hash function, basically we do calculate on 1024 bytes or 256 bytes or sometimes 512 bytes. Okay, so to match with this boundary 256 multiple or 512 multiple or 1024, you might be having some extra bits. Okay, so all those things are added in AH. So for that you are going to specify what is the length of AH we are going to have here. Okay, then security parameter index. We discussed you are going to have a 32-bit security parameter index which can assist in identifying security association connection uniquely. Similarly, you are going to have a sequence number. Okay, again I said this can vary from 0 to 2 power 32 minus 1. Any value randomly we can select, but only thing is when 2 power 32 we reach, we cannot roll back to 0 and continue, but we need to close the security association and come up with new security association. And authentication data, it is the result of applying hash function. Okay, hash function to entire IP datagram except the fields which vary time to time. Okay, this is how authentication header is constructed. So authentication header, addition of AH header follows in the following manner. Like we are going to consider AH that is added to the payload with authentication data set to 0. Initially we will keep this authentication data 0. If padding is needed, depending on the total length required for a hashing algorithm, we will add padding bits. If it is not needed, we are not going to consider any padding bits. And hashing is based on total packet. The complete packet we are going to consider. However, we are going to consider only those fields of IP header which do not vary during the transmission. Okay, for calculation of this digest. And this authentication data, after calculating, we are going to place inside that authentication header. Initially we had 0, now we are going to keep this authentication data. Then in the original IP header, like this IP header is going to have protocol field, right? There we are going to specify 51 saying like the content of this particular packet is authentication header. So that is about authentication header. So is it clear what is authentication header?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the authentication protocol provides message authentication and integrity, but it does not provide any privacy. Okay. So we are making sure like nobody can modify this particular thing, but we are not saying like this is confidential. So to overcome that one, we have come up with encapsulating security payload. Okay. In this case, you are going to have both encryption and also authentication. When I have encryption, okay, again with respect to either public key or private key, whatever it is, nobody else will be able to decrypt that particular thing. So we are going to have some kind of privacy to the information what we are carrying. Okay, so see here in ESP what we are doing, IP header is there, then ESP header in which we are going to keep security parameter index and sequence number. These two things were there in the AH header also, right? In the ESP trailer, we are going to have some kind of padding bits. Okay, again these padding bits are with respect to the payload. For example, your payload is not having enough bits to be satisfied by like multiple of 256 or 512 as per the requirement of hashing. We are going to add some extra bits. Okay, and we will specify how many number of these extra bits has been added, that is pad length. And next header, what is this next header? Can anyone say what will be there in this? Yes, what will be there in next header? We had the next header in AH also, right? Authentication header. What did we consider there? No idea?
Type of payload carried by the IP datagram.
Yeah, type of payload, or to slightly modify, I can say like the protocol type. Okay, whether we are carrying TCP information or ICMP or IGMP, that information you are going to keep in next header. Okay, so this is your header and this is your trailer, and during the process of encryption, I am going to consider the rest of the payload, like whatever the payload I am getting from the top layers, that payload I am going to have. Okay, and then for that I am going to attach ESP trailer, and this entire these two fields you are going to encrypt, and I am going to generate this authentication data. For that I am considering ESP header and this complete rest of payload and ESP trailer. And this authentication data again tries to consider the fields which are not changing here. Okay, so if you see here, we are not considering IP header in the calculation of authentication data, but when I consider authentication header in calculation of authentication data, we have considered IP header. Okay, that is a variation we have, you need to remember. So ESP provides message authentication because we have authentication data. By using some hash function, we will generate that. If somebody modifies, that hash code will be different. And integrity and privacy, how we are achieving? With authentication we will get integrity, with encryption you are going to get privacy. Okay, but when an IP datagram carries ESP, the protocol field, in the IP datagram protocol field we are going to have 50, value is 50. For authentication header the value will be 51. So these are same, like SPI is same, what we considered, sequence number is same. Okay, padding, you are going to have some kind of extra bits. Pad length, the number of padding bytes we have added, maximum we can have is 255 bytes. Next header same as authentication header itself. Authentication data also, this field is the result of applying an authentication scheme, like you might be using some hashing technique. In authentication header we consider IP header as part of calculation of this authentication data, but in ESP we are not considering that one. So when I consider IPv4 and IPv6, both has the support for IP security, that is IPsec, but when I consider AH versus ESP, ESP was designed after AH came into use. So whatever you are doing in authentication header, everything is done by ESP. In such case, the question is why we need to again go with AH. The reason is already there are many systems which are developed by considering authentication header. So we cannot remove all those systems. Because of that reason, we are considering still authentication header in providing IPsec or security at IP layer. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So I think we will stop here because